Hello, everyone. I'm here for one of my stories. This is Lindsay Dunn, and I'm on here today. I want to do a quick review of Creed 3, which I just attended a press screening for. Creed 3 is directed by Michael B. Jordan, with a story by Ryan and Keaton Coogler, based on the characters from the Rocky franchise, starring Michael B. Jordan, Jonathan Majors, Tessa Thompson, and a great supporting cast. This movie is like no other Rocky movie you've ever seen. First of all, we got a new location. We are now in Hollywood, baby, and you can see the sign behind my head. It's a little sad that it's no longer in Philly, but for this movie, there's a lot of turning corners and stepping into the new completely. We are now completely disengaging ourselves from many of the things that are familiar to us from the Rocky franchise, namely Sylvester Stallone, who's nowhere in this movie. But there is a new location. We have a new director. Michael B. Jordan does his directorial debut and does a smashing job and has a completely different directing style than what we've seen before. What I mean by that is the fighting style is completely different than in the previous Rocky movies. If you look at video footage, I actually went on a YouTube rabbit hole because I've never seen like Rocky 3 or Rocky 4, and I wanted to see the fights between Victor Drago and Apollo Creed, and also Victor Drago versus Rocky. I'd never seen those before. And they're very much filmed like you're sitting in the audience. We're kind of back so that we can see everything. And that's one vantage point. But in Creed 3, we are up close and personal where we're really feeling the hits and we're really feeling the beating that these people are taking. There's at least three big fights in this movie, and each of them are filmed in this style. What that does is just something very different. In this movie, not only are we up close and personal with the camera, but the way the camera is used, you can actually tell what the fighters are thinking as the camera will reflect a certain thing, and we say like, okay, we can tell they're thinking about what their next move is going to be, because boxing is very much a chess match. The way that Michael B. Jordan uses the camera gives us insight into not just what's happening in the fight, but what the people are thinking as they're fighting, which is pretty amazing. The music is really great as well and heightens the fighting scenes and the training scenes. I love a good training scene and dual training scenes. These techniques are also used in Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid movies, where you have the bad guy and the good guy training at the same time, and you're seeing how each of them is preparing for this fight. And there's always similarities and differences. And we're thinking, okay, well, who's getting trained better and who's going to win? So, those are things that are kept from the Rocky franchise that we really love. But this had that new fighting style that I found really appealing and really put you in the ring with the contenders for every single fight. Another thing to note about the fight sequences, and not just the way that they're shot and the way that they amplify what the characters are thinking, but I also found it intriguing the different ways the characters fight and their fighting styles and what that says about them. And Adonis Creed has this carefully constructed fighting style that he has come to from years of training and learning things that work for him and his things that we've seen him do. Whereas Jonathan Majors has been his character has spent his life in prison, and so his fighting style is really rough and very uh I don't know, masculine or manly in a different way. It's sort of awkward in the way that it's filmed. It's not a smooth, beautiful thing to watch. It's almost lumbering, but that really worked for his character and it was realistically done. And I thought it was really impressive how Jonathan Majors use that throughout. They must have created that because it's a very carefully constructed fighting style that is very different from how we see Creed fighting, for instance, or even I think it's Felix, the other characters, or like Ivan Drago from his fighting. So I really love how they brought in that fighting style and how it was so brutal. The thing about Sylvester Stallone not being found, some people might be very sad about that, but I think that was the right move on his part. The things that Adonis Creed is dealing with in this movie are things that Rocky hasn't necessarily dealt with in the same way. And so I do feel like the center stage of this movie goes to our black characters and our black cast. And I think that was the right move. And when you watch Creed 2, there's a scene at the end where Sylvester Stallone is almost saying goodbye to the franchise. And that was a fitting thing for him to do. Even though he's not in this movie, I didn't feel like I really missed him being in the movie because I was engaged and we're turning over a new leaf. This is now, this franchise now belongs to Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed. And that's the fitting thing to happen. When you look at the trajectory of these movies, we have in the first movie, Creed is coming to terms with his father and all that there is. He's hasn't had that relationship a good one. So he's kind of trying to build himself from the ground up. And then the second movie, there's the rivalry between Victor and Ivan, which is still in a way dealing with his father and his baggage left over and the life they stole the life he could have had maybe. And so he had something to prove in that count. But in this movie, he's really dealing with his past and his choices that he made that really had nothing to do with his father because at the time his father wasn't in the picture. He's more like this invisible presence. This movie really is about him and his origin story. It's the origin story of not just Adonis Creed, but also Jonathan Majors as the character of Damien, who is, as up to this point, been an invisible presence in Adonis's life, but it's also his story and about his life and the things that he feels were taken from him. And so this fight just has a lot of resonance and a lot of meaning in it that they really built up well. They took their time. They didn't dawdle or, linger on it too much, but it was satisfying in the way that you got to experience that. And again, just like in Creed 2, they did a good job with Ivan Drago, not making him into a mustache twirling villain. He was a really good villain because he was complex and there were things you empathize with him. And so you will empathize also with Damien. That's done well. So I give this movie a resounding 2 thumbs up. I think it is a great new chapter in the Rocky franchise, and Michael B. Jordan directs with a sure hand. You would never know it was his first time directing. The camera work is great, and it's a gripping and kinetic experience. And Majors is a worthy contender for Adonis Creed. And I will say, the man has beautiful lips. His lips need a Twitter account or a zip code of their own. In conclusion, if you love the Rocky franchise, you're in great hands to go ahead and check this movie out as well. That is all I wanted to say. That is my review, and I'd love to hear if you have seen it. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think, or if you're going to go see this movie. I'd love to hear from you and start getting more comments on these videos. So that's it. Signing off for one of my stories. Good night.